has concluded. The participants in the executive session were Councilmember Tracy Lewinson, Councilmember Tim Hill, Mayor Pro Tem Dana Green, Councilmember Max Borgensi, Councilmember Christian Luna Real, Councilmember Shannon Grant, Mayor Lobby, and then Deputy City Clerk Hannah Shear, City Administrator Lori Simonson, and City Attorney Christiana McCormick. I did. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion, and that actually we already have a motion and a second to reconvene. I will take roll call, please.
Here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mayor Lobby,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewison. Yes. Councilmember Luna,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Councilmember Borgensi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, we return to the regular meeting of City Council meeting of November the 15th, 2022.
So, are you going to make that motion, Tracy? On this? Okay, no, yeah, but the intent is to make a motion to go into another. The intent is to make a motion to go into another executive
Yes,
session,
I
right?
want to go into another executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
And so we'll have to refine your motion, and there are two things that we need to do before that, before you vote on the motion, okay? Can you guys all hear me, okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. So when there is the potential to go into an executive session regarding a personnel matter, the person about whom the executive session needs to have the chance to request that the discussion be held in an open meeting. The other thing that needs to happen is that city council needs to express or decide who is going into the executive session should the motion pass, okay? So those are the two things. If the motion passes, all city council members, right, will be in the meeting, and who else does city council want in the meeting, in the session, excuse me? Me, okay? Anybody else?
No.
Okay. Okay, so I understand that the executive session is intended to be about the city administrator. And so we need to give the city administrator the chance to request that the session be held in an open meeting. So, Lori.
So this is, I was unaware of this request. I did not know that it was going to be requested. So my answer is, I would like to have the opportunity to ask some questions about open session. And if I can, I guess what I would like to say is I have a lot of questions about it, and I don't know my answer. So my request would be that I have the opportunity to think about the question. And if the council would like to have an executive session to do that, that I be offered the opportunity to think about my answer to the question, and that the executive session be at a meeting other than this evening.
I did provide you with all this information over the weekend,
Me,
you and the mayor.
right, but Lori didn't have the chance to get that information
It's
over.
not
the
my job to inform Lori, the mayor's job.
So that I guess it's not clear cut whether there was any obligation just from that request about that. So right now, city council can, you can make the motion, right? Lori, if you say, I don't know tonight, and city council makes the motion to go into executive session tonight and wants to have that tonight, and you say, I don't know, then they are allowed to go into executive session. And city council, on the other hand, can also consider Lori's request to hold off on that motion until the next meeting. So that is up to city council. And so I would say consider the request to postpone it till the next meeting first, and then we can go from there.
I don't think that's gonna wait until the next meeting.
Then I would ask if there's a second.
Lumen 9 seconds.
Okay, now we're in discussion. I would say, I feel like, and to Councilmember Lauritsen's point, I felt as a city member of city council that it was not my place at all to discuss that letter with anybody. So I'll leave it at that. I think it is, especially considering all that we have on our plate tonight, it is inappropriate to go into another executive session tonight when we could do it on at a future date and do
Not
it.
inappropriate,
and-
it may be inconvenient, but it's not inappropriate.
Well, it's my opinion that it's inappropriate, but that's my opinion. And I would suggest that having caught the employee off guard with this, that person also has a right and an opportunity to give some thought to the process that would then take place.
Thanks, that's hand raised.
Max, yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Lowering hand. If Councilmember Lauritsen believes that this is something that has to occur tonight, I'm gonna honor her. I disagree with that. I mean, I don't know where my stand is, but I think we should go through a motion to see where we go. I feel that we could probably get all the reports, departmental reports, and do a double departmental reports in the future. And the ordinance number 11 that we're going to, I mean, these are real civic matters, I think, that we have to discuss if that's the case. I don't think we need to go through departmental reports if we're looking to shave time. We already just went through an executive session for an hour and a half. I don't know what the difference would be if we go through another one.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any other discussion?
I would just say that I would agree with the mayor and give Lori a chance to decide what she wants to do. Being as that it is, she just now found out about it.
Shannon?
I think it's important. But I also think that it can wait.
Dana?
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Okay.
So I'm not sure I have a helpful opinion. on
I
this.
can, Tracy has written a letter to city council with what she considers some issues with the performance of the city administrator. And she wanted to go into executive session to discuss that.
And the usual course is to allow the person involved the option to request an open meeting or not?
Yeah, what the open meetings law says is that if the person who is the subject of the executive session requests that the discussion be done in an open meeting, then city council has to have that discussion in open meeting instead of in executive session.
And what would you need to make that decision?
Well, since I just got word of this right now, yeah, I would like to have some questions about what would be allowed in the open session. What public information would come out in the open session. My position is that I'm proud of my performance with the city. I have nothing that I wouldn't be proud to say, but there are probably personnel matters that might come up that we may not be able to discuss in open session. So I'd like to be able to task our city attorney some questions about that. And if it was an open session, do I get a chance to? I guess what I'm saying is, I think I have a lot of questions about that process that I'm just now are racing through my head, and I'd like an opportunity to formulate those and have an opportunity to ask those so that I know what my options are.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Christian?
It's not today, it should happen this week, so. I think it is that grave of an issue, based on what I've heard.
Okay, Tracy?
I obviously would like to go into an executive session.
I know, I just want to give you the opportunity in discussion. Thank you. Any other discussion before we go to roll call? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
No.
Councilmember Littleton,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna Leon,
Yes,
Councilmember Fergenti,
Yes,
Councilmember Grant,
No,
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
No,
Mayor Levy.
No. The motion has failed. So we can entertain a motion at a future date, but for tonight, that motion has failed. Okay. At this time, we have presentations and discussion. This is an introduction to the Director of the Office of Emergency Management, Claire Skeen. Claire, you're up, and it's order.
Well, thank you all for having me tonight. I really appreciate you all taking the time to meet with me. As Mayor said, my name is Claire Skeen, and as of yesterday, I assumed the role of the Director of the Office of Emergency Management for Lake County and the city of Leadville as well. I've had the pleasure of working with many of you during my time in the county manager's office, and I look forward to continuing that partnership in this new venture. You know, there's 8 principles of emergency management. My personal favorite one is collaboration. I'm very fond of it because I believe that true success can only be achieved through a whole community approach. And by collectively understanding and assessing the needs of our community, we can build a stronger, more disaster resilient Lake County. OEM has a lot of exciting things coming down the pipeline, and I've really hit the ground running. As you all know, the updated community wildfire protection plan was finalized this past summer, and now we get to start implementing strategies and projects to reach those goals outlined in that document. Next year, we'll start working on our hazard mitigation plan update, so we can mitigate any natural disasters that may occur. And then, in addition, plans are in progress to help, plans are in progress to include a new emergency operations center in the community justice center proposal. That would allow us to have more efficient operations and provide a higher level of service to residents and visitors of Lake County. This is a really small sampling of plans and projects that I plan to accomplish in the coming years. But as always, the priorities of OEM will be to protect public health and safety, preserve property, and prepare for and manage all hazard incidents. So thank you all again for your time tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. My office is up at the cache. My door is always open. Anytime you all would like to discuss priorities, projects, ideas.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions for Claire? I do have one that just occurred to me, and it does the Office of Emergency Management interface with CDPHE and EPA at all on operable units, or is that just not something that's within the scope?
So we do operate with like public health, like Lake County Public Health, in addition to DPHE as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Claire? Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Next up, we have the City Administrator's Report.
All right, we have a long meeting tonight, so just a couple of things. I wanted to follow up on a request from Councilmember Fergenti. He had requested that we perform a survey on our lot that we own up on 11th, so that we can figure out what we have and what we don't have. And so our planning director, Chapin LaChance, he provided me with information that indicated he sought out 3 different companies for quotes, which is what we would need to get for this. We received no response from one. Another company provided minimal detail in their bid, no callback, and no response to request for more detail. That bid was $2,250. The third quote was it provided a super detailed bid, called back with specific questions to narrow down and received a response. That was for $9,020. So I just wanted to throw that out there that we are pursuing this, but I guess what maybe council member for Gency, it seems like we're looking at probably $9,000 to do that survey.
We don't know what we have up there.
Yep, I just wanted to let you know, I wish it would have been the quote for $2,250, but when we get no response and no call back for information, that's probably not a good sign in the honeymoon. So wanted to update you on that. A couple other
Can I
updates.
back up real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt. But Max, so what we have up there are two rows of 11 lots. And the cash sits on, I think about 3 of those lots, and now they built the communication tower in a really odd location in there. But the real issue is that there's a mining claim that bifurcates, and some of those properties. So the only way we can go in there and make plans to build is if we can clean up the title on those. And so and you may already have known that, sorry, but I just want to make sure everybody understood that.
Okay, and I said I would keep it brief. One thing I've been wanting to get back to you all on is I appreciate you all having tablets for your council packets. It has made a difference. We don't have exact data back from our finance director, but she has reported back to me that our paper and toner costs are lower. So thank you. With that, I wanted to let you all know, as I said, I was trying to take a vacation. I postponed my vacation to handle some details, but I will be out of the office. I've committed to this starting tomorrow, and I will be out of the office and out of town and back in the office next week. If you need me, you can reach me, but I will be out of the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a housing update. Michael? There you are.
We can't hear you.
You're muted, Michael. We're still getting no sound.
It doesn't look like you're muted, so you probably have to switch your input device on Zoom. Probably can't really retry it. Just restart Zoom or something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you well.
Sorry about that. Whenever there's switches, and for some reason my computer's been not doing that, but I apologize about that. Thank you very much for allowing me to give my last update from the DOLA IHOP grant. I will keep this very brief. I just wanted to put a checkbox on the end of our endeavor of going through the DOLA qualified strategies. I would commend the council for working very hard. Also, I appreciate the staff's time and legal counsel's time to get us through this process. We've accomplished a lot in a very short period of time. Name a huge accomplishment was the Regional Housing Authority. I think you guys, I told the commissioners this morning that you guys set a record for accomplishing getting that completed in less than 6 months, getting the draft community guidelines to the point where the Regional Housing Authority can adopt them, not to mention the fact that we have accomplished 13 qualified strategies under the DOLA guidelines. And finally, we have submitted a letter of intent for a $1.5 million grant that could result up into 79 units of new affordable housing. So I just really appreciate the council's commitment to going through the planning process. It's been an honor. I really appreciate the time that you took to do this. I know it was a lot of work in a short amount of time, and you have a very busy schedule. The last thing I would add is tonight you're considering the last of the 13 qualified strategies, the townhome and condo subdivision exemptions, to allow for us to create affordable housing units for ownership. It's a huge step and would really expedite the process and put people in successful housing situations. So I really appreciate that as well. I appreciate Cheban's commitment to working with me on that and getting that one across the finish line. So thank you very much.
Any questions for Michael? Michael, a lot of this has happened because of you, so I really want to thank you. You've been amazing and you've been present, so that's pretty cool. The Housing Authority is quite an accomplishment for all of us, but you were instrumental in making that happen. I did have a question. The school district is on board with this plan for the area that you've chosen for the $1.5 million. Is that correct?
I have not heard a commitment on the land donation. I know they had an internal meeting. I believe that the formal request is going in front of the school district. If the school district would not participate, then we would have to amend the grant.
Got it. And Christian, you were going to say something?
Yeah, we are currently working with Jackie, myself, and Sarah Mudge, Commissioner Mudge, are working on getting those relationships started and rolling. There's some questions that the school board does have for us around the process and such that we want to get answered, but it won't be for some time until we know. We want to, the 29th is when we have our deeds versus lease
Right.
training.
That's at 5:30, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and we kind of want to go through that training ourselves to really be able to go to that meeting fully prepared and presenting everything we can to the board and all the available information. So that probably won't happen until the first meeting of December. The first school board meeting of December, which is, I think, the second Monday of December.
It's interesting to say that because Paul Anderson has invited me to speak to the school board on the 28th or whatever it is, that
For the lower.
that Monday for the not the lower part, for the climax
Oh.
parcel. But so my question is, should I put that off until you're done?
Good question.
We can talk about it offline.
Yeah.
You know, you might want to get in touch with me and decide whether or not whether my presentation to them, which is nothing more than a conversation, might affect, what you guys are trying to accomplish, because I didn't realize that was the next step.
And the lower board, Reed will be there to present on the 28th meeting on the behalf of the project that he's working
Good.
with.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Michael?
I guess my ultimate question, Michael, is how do you think that we are going to fare on the letter of intent? I mean, I know you can't, I think there are some good signs, but what's your expert take on our chances?
Well, I will say I have helped several communities apply and have gone through this process with several other communities. I will say a lot of eyebrows were raised with the accomplishments. I will say that you're probably the only community that created a regional housing authority and accomplished that. So I think I will say that you rank highest among the communities I assisted with. And as well as I think the impact for the money is pretty great. So I really think that they're looking for a project like this. You check the boxes, and we actually, one of the biggest things that I did learn is that there are some extra points, some extra credit points that we garnered with the adoption of the 2008 building code, as well as our future deed restrictions being in perpetuity. And the final one was the public participation, and the fact that the city council and the BOCC participated in that site analysis and held meetings at the school and offered them as bilingual. and got that input, went a long way in our application meeting. So again, while I know I have gotten kudos, I will also say that without the help of and the work of the Housing Coalition and the advocacy that they provided throughout the process, this, it takes a team to get something like this done. So I commend the community and I commend the elected leadership on taking this on and really dedicating the time to do it. So I think DOLA sees that. And I really feel like we're going to be a strong candidate.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for the report. It's heartening that we're making progress on several fronts. I would add, I did write a letter of support for the Chafee Housing Trust today. It was due by 3 o'clock, so short notice, but nonetheless, things are moving in the right direction. And as a community, we've done so many things right. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, the approval of November 1st, 2022 minutes.
For approval of the consent agenda.
Pardon me?
It's technically the
It is,
approval.
oh yeah, consent agenda.
At 8 o'clock.
I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Luna Led moves to approve the consent agenda.
Green seconds.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All were in favor. At this time, we're going to do something a little bit weird. We're going to hear department reports while we get something to eat. I know that
Speed round.
it's a little bit unorthodox. And you guys are going to have to speak up so we can hear you. But that's how I wish to proceed.
Can I make a request that we, I've just texted our two administrators to head over here. I gave them a heads up for the police department. So they are on their way.
Okay.
I believe they are both on their way, at least
We
Joanne.
may go out of order.
So maybe we could skip to fire and come.
Also, the rule has always been that we've always tried to have our department reports early so that department managers, once they're done with their report, they are allowed to leave because it's a long day.
And I guess I would say that latest of the hour, maybe a minute or so, if you.
I would think 30 seconds. What do you think, Dan? You get to start. And in the
Okay.
meantime, if anybody wants to go get something to eat, please go do that now. We've still got a good bit to cover here.
All right. Good evening, council, mayor, everyone. We have an ISO protection class process going on right now. I don't know if I informed you the last updates, but that's the insurance rating that everybody gets on their home. So we're going through the process right now, and it'll take up to about 6 months to hear back from what the results are. And that is it's collective between the water district, our communications dispatch, and the upgrades of what we have done for the fire department. And there's certain criteria that we need to meet. So currently right now within the city, we're a class 3, and we're kind of hoping that will lower. And out at station 2, we're hoping to go somewhere in between a class 10 or people not being able to get insurance to hopefully either a 5 or 6 or a 7 or 8 to be able to help with people's insurance rates. So I'm really glad that we're going through this process to be able to do that for our community members. House Bill 1194 grant was awarded. That's for 5 sets of bunker gear. We're still waiting on the AFG grant of $50,000 for 12 sets. Have not heard back from them. It's I don't know why. It's a weird situation. We were down to 2 residents because we lost Captain Molson and firefighter Hillman. We hired our 2 residents and then did internal promotions. Under the fire marshal, 555 advanced and plan reviews. He did 6 short-term rental inspections in order to be able to keep our visitors safe. He attended the leadership conference, 2nd year under scholarship. That was great. He finalized 4 cisterns down Lake Fork to add 27,000 gallons of water to that site down there for fire protection, not only structural, but it's also a rural water support for us, maybe during a wildland fire. Excuse me. And then Chief McCann taught a building construction course at CMC. That's towards associate's degree courses. CMC Fire Academy is finishing up. They're in hazardous materials operations right now. And then they'll graduate next month. And we've identified possibly 4 excellent candidates to bring on our residency program. And just continuous work with outside agencies for Colorado Fire Camp, Chaffey County Fire Protection District, Colorado State Forest Service WIRE, and wildland mitigation for Lake County. What's different in your statistics, we're finally on our image trend. And I know I'm getting there, Mayor. I know I'm long-winded. You always, I apologize.
Some things never change.
I know they don't. So the statistics, please take a look at them when you get an opportunity. They're different than what I normally.
I was gonna comment on that. I really, these are interesting,
They are.
you know, because you break it out by time at a given,
Days,
well, no, you do days,
Hours.
so I'm talking about the actual number of minutes
minutes.
per stop, and it's just different, it's interesting.
And so just for an example, on that first one, when we're doing day of the week, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to capture our high peak times and high peak days. And then maybe be able to staff a little bit differently at station 2, et cetera. But the bigger thing with these statistics now, in the very backside of this, to not make the report as long, I just wanted to show you some of the stuff that we can capture. And it's kind of like all of our training and our administrative time, all of that, which is in the backside of that packet. So please take a look at that. If you'd like for me to continue to give you that information, I'd be more than happy to. But again, I don't want to make the report lengthy. Okay, thank you very much.
Any
I
questions
appreciate it.
for Chief Daly on his report?
I want to thank the chief. One of the things I wanted to do is make the packets more digestible for you all. And one of the suggestions I had was for him to bullet point some of the highlights and really keep it to the key stuff. And so I appreciate that. I think the last 2 times it's been well received.
One thing I just find it, I don't want to, prolong it too much, but by far the most calls you have are EMS calls that are not traffic related, which really surprises me.
Yeah, EMS rescue, they're kind of captured in one, but yeah, it's mostly emergency medical calls, which is our highest percentage, yes.
Okay, interesting.
Now, vehicle accidents have tripled since like 2017, so be careful out on the highways, please.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Next up, since we have our police department is represented, and we have a police department report here in front of us.
Can I introduce?
Please do.
All right, so Joanna Lopez. Joanna has been with us for a while, and I want to thank her for stepping up. With the departure of Shannon Vitale, Joanna has stepped up to fill in that role on her own. And I want to thank her for the hard work to make sure the administrative work of the police department is done. Joanna and Perla Flores is our new administrative police supervisor. And so these 2 ladies are the folks who do the administrative work in the police department. We are working very hard to get them both up and trained. They are both go-getters, and were just telling me today that they reached out, and the Buena Vista police department is willing to train them and let them shadow for a period of time. So I think that they took the initiative themselves to reach out to get that training themselves, and I appreciate that. So do you want to, Perla is new, and so this is her 3rd week. Do you want to just tell us where you have come from to come and what made you join us?
So I done different roles, but I've worked for Atkinson Lake County for over 4 years, almost 5 years. And then I kind of from that was working down in the summit, but I definitely am passionate about being in the community and helping in any way I can. And so that this opportunity came up, and so I was really excited to be able to work within my community. So thank you.
And Joanna, I'll just give you a chance. This is your first council meeting as well, so I appreciate you both being here to introduce yourselves and if you would like to say anything about your experience in policing so far.
Well, I've been here for about a year now. I like working for the police and hopefully, like, Lori said, maybe get up to speed and start doing our job properly. So,
Great, thank you.
That's all.
And so any questions, I guess, for the police department?
Thank you guys for being here.
I appreciate you coming. I told you it was gonna be late, so thank you. And then I did tell them there would be snacks, so please help yourself to snacks.
Everybody help themselves to snacks.
Okay.
Okay, next up, street department.
Max is starving to death up there.
Well, I'll keep it real short. Our month has been really quiet. We're finishing up on all our dig permits and everything, closing up everything for the winter time. I think we have only one left, but it's more of a boring thing through the ground instead of digging actual channels for Excel. We've been working on all our equipment, getting it ready. Everything is ready to go. Everything is greased, gassed, and even polished up a little bit because we've been kind of bored. And stuff, but
Sorry to hear that. We can fix that.
oh, we've been finding things to do. I've been keeping the guys.
Oh, sure. I will ask, on Tracy's behalf, what's the status, and I know it's not your project, I know it's Parkville Water, what's the status on Seventh Street? I haven't been up there in about a week, so what have they done, to hold it over through the winter?
From what I understand, they've done the type of digging, they've already filled everything in, they packed it down. They had the contractor in there and they got the roller in there and everything is set for the winter. There's not gonna be any paving done on that till springtime, but they've got the road level enough. The guys have been looking at it to make sure that when they do plow through there, they're not gonna tear up the road, make it worse. So it should be good, but they are aware of it, so they'll do their best to take care of it as well. The only issue that we're gonna have is probably gonna be that manhole. When it was placed in kind of incorrectly, so I'm not sure if there's anything we can do about it, or if we're just gonna have to live with it.
Is that a new placement?
Apparently when they were doing the digging down there, it was broken when they opened it up, so they replaced it themselves. And I'm not sure, I'm not getting exact truths on this, but they may not have checked with Parkville to make sure that the levels and everything were right when they put it in. So when they did the paving on that section there, they had to put quite a bit of asphalt in there to level it out to make the road at least passable for now. But we'll deal with that in the springtime once we get.
Hopefully the residents of Seventh Street won't be impacted worse than they were earlier in the summer.
It's passable right now, and it's fairly obvious to just be careful right through there, and it's not gonna damage anything.
Okay,
So it should be good.
great, thank you. I also like this report format. Just very easy to read and kind of understand, so. And I appreciate you going back to the year over year. That I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, last month I didn't know how to do that, but I figured it out.
Great, thank you for adding that.
Any questions for street department? Okay, thank you. Next up, we have the Leadville Lake County Animal Shelter.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make it quick. So we have 20 animals currently in our care. 8 of those are on a hold, so we don't know when that release date is going to be. To date, we've had over 270 animals come through the doors. And then I have the rest of the statistics on the piece of paper. Anybody has any questions? So the 8 adoptions, 8 surrenders. 30 impounds last month.
What are other outcomes?
The bite quarantines that were euthanized, and then we had an elderly cat that had liver failure and a few other failures.
Okay.
So humane euthanasia.
Right, thank you. Any questions for the animal shelter? Thank you very much.
Thank you both for being here. I think you've all, has everyone met Jenna as well as Caitlin? Okay. I want to make sure, because I know you've been at meetings before, but I don't know. If
I
you-
have,
Okay, good.
I'm Jen.
We have the deputy city clerk's report in front of us. It's just informational, but any questions on that report?
Maida was kind enough to put this together before she left. You can see that there are 322 out of 325 business licenses up to date. There's one new business application for renewal, two are also renewed for 2023. As far as the short-term rental licenses, we are almost at capacity as of today. When Maida wrote this, we were. We did go ahead and approve, I approved the special event permit for the Lake County for their event in December.
Any questions for the deputy city clerk?
Not a question, I just want to acknowledge, I know that there's been a lot of different people over the time who have been working on this, but the number of businesses up to date on their licenses is so much better than it was like a year ago. So
And I want to
Just
thank the
really am happy about that.
absolutely, and I think that that's a testament to having the resources to be able to do that and not having a deputy city clerk and having change and I wanna, Maida was great that she took that on herself and worked with me and we drafted letters to folks and we made a plan. And finally, you know what the trick was? We did what we did with the short-term rentals. So we had a handful that Maida was really frustrated, hadn't renewed. And I said, well, are they local? And she said, yeah. I said, well, let's draft a letter and post it on their businesses. And we did. We drafted a letter and we did what we do with the short-term rentals. We posted it on their businesses and they give her. So it is honestly, we've talked about this before. It's having the resources to be persistent on this. So we appreciate it and we appreciate Hannah stepping up and filling that role too.
Excellent, thank you. Next up, we have the building department. I've never seen this report before. Is this from Chapin? Who is this from? Or is this from the county?
It was interesting, whoever provided. it.
Right, well, yeah, we hadn't seen it in this format before.
Oh, the city building permits?
Yeah,
I do not believe that is from Chapin.
I don't think so either, because
Chapin's is the next document, the starting, well, on mine, it's page 56.
well, the building department has given us this, which is a running list. Although, let's see, I can't really tell. Yeah, I can.
Can't tell where
This
it
is really for the whole year,
Mhm,
year to date.
mhm.
That's what it is. And then they're rolling up their numbers for the totals that they,
I think we should.
Charge for city
put a
permit.
bullet list. on
Yeah.
all of it.
this is pretty good. Any questions on the building permit report? Okay, planning, Chapin's
Yes.
very sick.
Yeah, so Chapin came down with the stomach bug. Literally this afternoon and being the trooper he is, he ran into the office and grabbed his laptop, so he could join virtually, but he is still, he's not physically able to join us tonight, so ask that highlight a couple of things I wanted to, in no particular order, we, in response to the sandwich board issue, so we worked together and we came up with the idea that Chapin would train the police department CSOs on where the sandwich boards are, because we're gonna allow them for a period of time until we figure out our next plan. What we wanted to do was train the CSOs on where they could actually go so that they're not an ADA violation and they're not blocking pedestrian access. So if you still see that issue, you can notify the CSOs or, whatever, the police department and the CSOs know what to do with regard to that. And then, as you can see, we talked about last time, you're gonna have some code amendments coming up. We talked about this last time. We're gonna have a busy agenda. And the other There was one other update. Oh, I don't know if it's on, oh yeah, so if you want to look at active applications. Councilmember Forgency, I'm sure will be happy to see this 809 Spruce, the first bullet point. We've been working, Chapin and Christiana and I, that will be before planning and zoning on December 14th, and then to you all on the 20th of December.
Okay, thank you. Sales tax comparisons, I think you've probably seen these already. We're at, through the end of October at about 1.3 million over the budgeted expectation. I've already seen the numbers for November. They're 108,000 over budget. So we're at about 1.4. We had projected 1.5, so luckily we might actually hit that. So that's good. What the future holds, I keep thinking it has to not continue to grow exponentially, but it's defied my logic so far. Next up, we have the finances. And Donna, are you on with us?
I'm here.
First, there's something that's not in the packet and it just is fresh off the press. And that has to do with the collections for the lodging tax. Could you speak to that briefly?
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my only report, basically, the accommodations. The accommodations tax for the third quarter is $91,265. So it was a stellar quarter. We still have about 15 people that have not yet paid. Now, of course, those might come in at zero, but I'm hoping that we can get a little bit more than that. But the total to date for all three quarters is $170,587. So it looks like we'll be okay with that $300,000 threshold. But third quarter was pretty surprising that it hit that number. I also wanted to report on the fact that on the charging station, we have not received any money for that yet, but it is being charged, it is being used, and we will receive money from that quarterly. So I do see figures out there, but I have not seen anything in the bank account yet. So unless somebody has some questions, I think that's really all I have to say.
How does the revenue from the charging station come into our bank account? Does it come through the company that we were contracted with, or is that just a separate deposit for every use?
It's being handled by Charge Ed Colorado.
Okay.
And then they remit to us. It's going to be interesting to see how that compares to the cost.
Were they the ones that were a little hard to?
Yes.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic.
I've done my usual, quick evaluation of the, and just for everybody's edification, the police department, we're at 83% of the year. The police department came in at 74.3%. Just in terms of the first thing I look at is the employee costs against budget. So they're at 74.3%. Street department 72.4%. Animal shelter 77.4%, again at 83% of the year. And the fire department is because they've been fully staffed all year at 81.6%. But the budget seems solid right now. It seems to be in really good shape. Next up, we have some bills. I've highlighted a couple things. Yes. Oh, did somebody say something? Okay. Well, I'm sorry we let Caitlin get out of here because under the animal shelter, there's an examination for a sick cat for $491. And I just went,
I wonder if
It's
that
kinda
was the cat
curious.
with liver failure and everything.
oh, yeah, I bet you're right. But that's a cat that didn't survive.
I would say from personal experience, getting to the point where you realize they are not going to survive is a fairly expensive.
Yeah, is it? Okay. Well, thank you for that. I also noticed that, the bill is in here for all the street decorations. And I've gotten several compliments around town. People, we bought brand new snowflakes.
Mhm.
And I told the street department they could put those up and they put up the garlands. And so it looks nice. I said, I don't want to see Christmas decorations until after Thanksgiving, please. So
I wanna-
Being this cold and dark though.
It is,
maybe we should
winter's-
Just,
it's really pushing.
mental health.
If I haven't done this already, I think I did this in a staff meeting, but I wanna thank Donna. Our finance director, she's significantly under budget for the decorations and they are up. I teased her that we are those people who get their decorations up really early, but she pointed out it's much easier for streets to get them up now rather than later when there's lots of snow on the ground. So I just wanted to say thank you to Donna for taking care of that and actually getting us decorations under budget.
Okay, have we had a chance to kind of review the bills? Any questions? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to pay the bills.
Green moves to pay the bills.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Donna, pay those bills.
I'll pay them. Hey, I wanted to say too that I hope I left the contingency balance on the desks down there. Hopefully you all seen them.
We saw that. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, action items. The first one is ordinance number 11 series of 2022, an ordinance amending title 16, which is subdivision regulations regarding townhouse, condominium, and building footprint lot subdivisions. This is first reading. So although this is not really a public hearing, if anybody in the public wants to speak on this, we certainly would be more than happy to hear what they have to say to us. This has been presented to us before. Any explanation on this is Michael may already be off.
No, this is on me.
Okay, hi Christiana.
Hello. So as the mayor said, you guys saw the draft of this ordinance before. And the point of this ordinance is to provide an administrative process for people to create townhouse, condominium, excuse me. And the third category is building footprint lot subdivisions. So these are not subdivisions of land as you typically think of a normal subdivision, right? They are subdivisions of, once a building has been constructed, they survey where the locations of the walls are, create a condominium plat or a townhouse plat or a building footprint lot plat. What is important about passing a regulation like this is that it allows potential home buyers for those types of units to access traditional financing. And it promotes affordable housing because they're lower, traditional financing and involves oftentimes lower interest rates. And so it just makes access to those types of units and homes more widely available to people. And so this is something that Michael Yerman has proposed. He did the initial draft. Chapin and I worked on refining the ordinance into the version that it is in your packet. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
It's my understanding, I'm not sure if I understand exactly the process, but that it also allows us to not go through a hearing process in order to do those subdivisions, those wall subdivisions. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part, it's just a tiny bit more complicated than that. So if there are multiple, and I'm sorry, my computer is dead, and so I'm speaking from memory right now. But if there are multiple structures on a lot or a piece of property and the property needs to be subdivided beforehand, or if there's a concurrent, basically, if there's a concurrent major or minor subdivision process that needs to happen along with this, then there are still public hearings for that concurrent minor subdivision or major subdivision process. But the townhouse subdivision or condo subdivision, for example, is still that an administrative process. But so those two things could be happening at the same time.
Any other questions for Christiana? Since it's first reading, I would entertain a motion, please.
Number 11 moves to adopt ordinance number 11, series of 2022, an ordinance adding a new chapter 16.22 to and amending chapter 16.28 of Title 16 of the Leadville Municipal Code concerning townhouse, condominium, and building footprint lot subdivisions on first reading. I further move to schedule second reading of this ordinance for the City Council's regular meeting on December 20th, 2022.
Right, second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
It's about time.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorsey,
Yeah.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Cortensi. Councilmember Cortensi,
Yes.
Mayor Lobby,
Yes. Thank you very much. Next up, we have a joint work session with planning and zoning and city council. This time I would ask for Chair Bowler to convene P and Z and ask for roll call.
Can I make a recommendation? We've heard from the public that the further away you are from the owl, the harder it is to hear. So if we could maybe all scooch down and have the Planning and Zoning Commission come sit here closer to this owl. Thanks for your patience. Okay, I will convene the planning commission meeting at 8:31. We have a roll call. Who's administering? You are, okay.
I do not have, I'm sorry, I'm new in this, I do not have your names.
Well, we can just do roll call sequentially and then I'll call the folks on Zoom. Gabby Bowler present.
Spain.
Present.
Present.
Nadine Tanu is present.
And then on Zoom, we have, Em, do you want to announce yourself?
M. Ducharme, present.
Okay. So I think we're going to start the work session with a presentation of the material from TJ Dublack, who from CPS, who's been working on this as a consultant for the Planning Commission.
Would it be possible for me to be able to share my screen?
Yeah.
I have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll run through.
I'm trying to remember who was on council when we started this project, 3 or 4. I know Dana, you were here. I remember that. Maybe Max, was Max here for round 1 of this project? Maybe.
How long ago was that?
Wasn't it 3 years ago? 4 years? It was, no, it was not 5 years ago.
First discussion we had was November 2018.
Okay.
I was surprised, but
We should be able to present now.
yeah, thank you.
And I always run into issues with this when I go into slideshow mode, so I'll try to just leave it like this and we'll run through it. Okay? Everyone here. See that? Let's see. Yeah, I'm not even gonna try it. Does it every time, so let's test it. So first, thanks all for the opportunity to, as this, we were just saying, this has been a very long process. And I'm privileged to be here and hopefully wrap it up here soon in the coming months. But I'm TJ DeLubac, I'm with Community Planning Strategies. What we're gonna tonight, I think this is the first time in this project's history that we've actually presented the City Council to. So received hopefully in the packet a memo, red line versions and clean versions. I guess what I would say is let's we'll go back and forth between the red line and the clean, but really the red lines are from today's code, so you can actually see what's changed even over the time. So kind of the format and what we're thinking for this is that I'll go through kind of hopefully about a 10-minute presentation. I'm going to try and run through this stuff pretty quickly. And then really just have an open conversation, see what questions we have, see what we want to dive into and discuss. So if that sounds okay from everyone, we'll just truck on through. Feel free to stop me along the way and whatnot. So again, tonight's agenda, we want to start with talking about the objectives of the project. Why did this start in the first place? A brief overview background that went into this that got us here tonight. This is an overview of the significant amendments. There were a lot of technical components, but there were also some significant policy changes, if you will, that we've done, and we'll walk through those. Then we'll go through next steps of the project, as well as, like I said, have hopefully plenty of time to have Q&A and talk about next steps. So first, these are the first, when we initially established this project, you'll see, I guess I should also back up. I think in your packet too was a set of background memos, where through the course of the project, we provided updates and discussion. So I'm just going to kind of refer to a lot of that content as well. So the first objective was to reorganize the overall table and make it more readable and usable. We'll talk a little bit more about how we did that and what we mean by that. So then remove duplicate uses from the table. There were a lot of those. And then where able, consolidate and simplify the table from the uses to create more general uses and terms. We'll talk a little bit more about the intent and reasoning behind that as well. We added uses that were not contemplated originally, and even more have been added more recently. And then lastly, to evaluate the level of review. So that's whether something is a use by right, special review, conditional review, use, or administrative or prohibited in different zone districts. So that was a major component of the objectives of this project. I think that's supposed to, maybe it is 17. So yeah, 17 is 5 years. That's when we started it. That was the original initial discussion with P&Z back in November of 17. And then we moved to multiple discussions through 2018, 19. Just to kind of put it into perspective as far as what was going on in the city at that time. The rail yard was just been annexed, and we were working through that PUD process. So a lot of these issues were right at the forefront, as well as the short-term rentals started kicking off too. And so we had this great combination of things that really, we joke that this project has gone on for a long time, but it's not for anyone's fault. Some of those other components really came in and kind of, this I think is kind of a way to focus on some of those other issues that were coming up. So this just kind of got put a little bit to the side while those other larger issues were being addressed. And then when we picked the project back up recently here in mid-May, I think it was April, the planning and zoning commission initially wanted to start it, and then went through an RFP process. I think we finally kicked it off in June with the planning and zoning commission, kind of giving them a background. Then we had a work session in August. I met with, actually Gavin wasn't there, it was just myself and Chapin a couple weeks ago to really kind of dive into some of the detail, because it's his job to enforce and administer this. So I want to make sure he understood what we were trying to do. And then here we are tonight with the joint work session. So summary, 5 years for the comp of this project, 7 P&Z meetings and 9+ iterations of amendments. So a lot has gone into this. This is not something that we've just jumped into and said, hey, we're done. There's been a lot of thought that came that got us to here tonight. So first, now jumping into kind of the proposed amendments. The first thing we did, and this is a kind of a philosophical kind of a change, if you will, in the structure of the land use table. Currently, the way that it's structured, the left column has all just the uses, and then how they're allowed in various zone districts. What we see is that as the development pressures, land use patterns, just market trends change, now you have to add a use. Or it's not allowed, right? So how do you become adaptable and adapt to what's changing in the market and land use trends? So what we did is we added this use category. And the intent of it is to allow a broader definition so that it can give that it gives the planning director the authority and the ability to make some interpretations on new uses that were not contemplated today. So that's the structure and the reason for it. Sorry, question?
No.
And so first we broke it into your typical uses, residential, public, commercial, industrial. And then within each of those, we have the use categories. This is also in the definition section, a new subsection in there where each of those are defined. Then the other major component that we were looking to do is reduce the amount of conditional uses that were going to the planning and zoning commission at this time. And so that was an objective as well. So we looked at each of the application, the uses, various zone districts, and tried to manage for impacts rather than process, if you will, or bureaucracy. Understand what the impact of that use in that zone district, that area is, and see who the appropriate review authority would be, whether it's administratively, the planning and zoning commission, or city council. So a lot of that had changed as well, and that's shown in the red line version. So what are some of the major changes that we did through all this process? First, we relocated all the marijuana industry uses, the marijuana uses into a marijuana industries use category. So that should help, generalize that as well if new things come out as well. Lodging facilities, talking about short-term rentals, bed and breakfasts, hotel, motel, others. There was timeshares, vacation rentals, that all kind of came into that conversation. And this is one of the big discussion points that went into kind of, if you will, for lack of a better term, delayed this project because the short-term rentals became the hot topic during this time. Alcohol production. So brewery, microbrewery, all of those uses were not allowed or not contemplated. So we identified a lot of those. What's the difference between brewery and microbrewery? Bar, tavern, distillery, things like that. We generally, I believe what we ended up doing was using Colorado liquor licensing laws to try to use those guidance to help guide what the land use should be defined as and where it should be allowed.
This is more recent, electronic, that's not right. Electric vehicle, terms and definitions we just had. Outdoor industry uses. One that came out originally, we started adding outdoor recreation equipment rental with and without outdoor storage. But then that kind of morphed as we discussed into other items such as the rental shop, outdoor guiding, outfitting, things that you'll see here in the and so you'll see in the table those uses as well. And then, of course, just some general clarifications, grammatical updates. We've tried to highlight all of those in the red line versions as well. So, as I mentioned, the last formal discussion we had with the P&Z was on August 24th. Since then, a couple of few changes have been made. So I just want to highlight those real quick, and all of these are highlighted in yellow in the documents that were provided in the staff report or the packet. So first, rental shop, we added that conditional in the R2 TR districts used by right, R3, CMT districts. Outdoor guiding, and then what we did in the definition section is say for outfitting, not to look at outdoor guiding. So it's
You don't say.
you never know what Siri's listening to. Goodness. You can see
What category? What category are all of those under?
So they're various, but I think rental shop and outdoor guiding are under recreation.
Recreation and entertainment?
Yes, and then the EV is going to be under utilities. Or automotive, I can't remember which one we put it under. Vehicle, I think it's gonna be under,
That's.
I don't have it. It would be under vehicles, so same as like gas station. Let me write that down here.
I don't know. I don't know.
TJ, can I ask a quick question? So I understand our 102 TRRC, what's T on the right? What is that? Zoning.
And you meant to say TC.
Oh, sorry, yes, TC.
Okay,
Yes, my apologies, yes, that's TC.
oh, it's just, oh, I see it's on our sheet, but not there. Okay. Thank you.
I don't see rental shop or outdoor diving in the recreation and entertainment this category.
It is in the, so we were making these changes late, they're in the draft or the red line version,
Oh,
not in the clean version.
Right, that was my question too, yeah.
Where are they in the red line version?
I don't have that.
Red line version should be,
173.
yeah,
I think it's page 173.
116 is where the graph starts on the packet.
I'm looking for it. Okay. I just wondered, where it is in the table of uses.
So it's
Yeah.
the very bottom, but down here highlighted in yellow.
Oh, it's where it says outdoor guiding.
Mhm. Yep, number 78 is rental shop, 79 is outdoor guiding, and 80 is the DV. And again, I apologize, that's in the red line.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I did try to, again, I missed it again, like I said, these are all some of the changes that Chapin and I were working on a couple weeks ago. So there might be, there's still obviously some changes to be made, but I think that gets that point across there. And then there's another one that was not in the packet, the definition of rental shop. Just didn't get to that before we got to get the packet out, but I have that up here as at least the proposed, an establishment that conducts business with its customers under conditions and terms agreed upon in a rental agreement or contract, which may be implied, explicit, or written. So as we were talking through this,
Chapin and I, the obvious use is, skis or mountain bikes. A rental shop for that. They were like, well, what about small machinery? You can go and rent like a chainsaw. Different things too. So we wanted to broaden that a little bit, so it's to cover all of that as well. So that's the definition that's being proposed as far as the rental shop. So a couple of other things that still need to be done, that have, definition for solar energy facility includes, it refers to a nameplate. Just haven't been able to research what that name, if that nameplate actually comes with something, so, or is it requirement, or if it has to do with, energy, public utility board, right, kind of thing. So there's a little bit more research on that, but that's just for the nameplate for the solar facility. We also, I think a really good conversation with something that came out of the conversation with Chapin a couple of weeks ago was we clarified the types of accessory uses commonly found within each use category. So previously, the language kind of all over the place. So we standardized the language that will help him interpret and apply those use categories a little bit better. A couple of, I'll call it minor technical changes, but has potentially a major impact on the use of it. We basically changed the responsibility from the building official to the planning director by definition for this table and things like that. So it puts it on the planning director rather than the building official. And then again, a bunch of various technical grammatical things, changes that are probably still going to need to be made just to tie it up and whatnot. So that was a very quick overview. I probably went over my 10 minutes. But 5 years and 10 minutes is pretty good. So again, obviously there's a lot to go through there. I don't want to brush over anything, but hopefully that was at least a decent overview of what went through. So next steps, comments, feedbacks, you all. We'll make those changes. Then we'll have to go through the code, the text amendment process that's outlined in chapter 17.9.2. That requires a public hearing at the planning commission as well as it's here you all. So first and second reading. So at a very minimum, that's the next step. Oh, I thought I added another slide in here. Gosh, I'm sorry. Because there's another thing. To bring to everyone's attention, another change that's going to have to be made is the just found out last week, I think, that the policy advisory team made a recommendation associated with multifamily uses and how those should be allowed. We are going to, through this process, mimic that. The slide here.
I do have one from Chapin from earlier.
Yeah, I took that and I put it in here, and I can probably pull up his.
I have it ready.
Okay. Oh, I did it right.
Those haven't been incorporated to the red lines, have they?
No, they have not.
Okay. I do think it's important to know, if you look at page 159. The red lines is that a pretty substantial change is allowing multiple family dwellings conditional in R1. and use by right in R2, whereas before it was prohibited in R1 and conditional in R2. And I think that was inspired by some of the DOLA affordable housing strategies of you want more places where things are either useful right, or have to kind of have fewer barriers or fewer things. And those according to the PAT, which is kind of a parallel different project, is that those would be governed by, you know, lot sizes. So not every single parcel in R2 would be able to have a multifamily. You'd have to have a minimum lot size of probably, I think right now it's at like 5,000 square feet. So 2 lots to put a 3-unit building, which is like, seems pretty reasonable to me.
That's part of the PAT
Which
recommendation.
is that much part of the PAT recommendations. So I just want to highlight that because it's a pretty big change. To allow multiple family by right in R2, which is most of the residential zone district of our city. So if there's any discussion around that, and it'd be conditional in R1, which is a smaller portion of the city, and those lots you'd have to be slightly bigger, maybe 7,500 square feet for a multifamily dwelling.
That's really interesting because we've talked about R1
Yeah.
being kind of a suburban,
Kind of, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
zoning, and, you know, maybe we shouldn't even have that in the city of Leadville. So I really appreciate making that multifamily housing in R1. And there's some R1, as you know, kind of up 8th Street around to McQuethy, and they're starting to build some homes in there now. But also, the entirety of the Climax parcel that we're looking at is zoned R1.
So
Now,
allowing multifamily there is really important.
oh, well, we may have to go further than that, but
Right.
nonetheless, yeah, it's a great step.
What is the school owned property at the end of 2nd and 3rd zone? That,
The triangle parcels,
Yeah.
those are R2.
Okay. I do have a question. Just curiosity, why do you differentiate in your definitions? Between EV charging stations that are public and EV charging stations that are private?
Well, I guess that's just kind of industry standard. And so it also. You want to have that opportunity. So one, is it a public facility or is it a private for profit? Now, mind you too, so we actually tie them together. So from a land use perspective, there's no difference.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
Yeah, but it allows you, many of you have not heard this soapbox from me, but I think your code's only as good as your definition section. And so I try, when I do code updates, specifically definitions, it's the last thing I do. I want to make sure everything that is in your table and used kind of throughout as a unique term is defined clearly. And not leave any uncertainty between things. So I'd hate for somebody to come in and say, oh, no, it's a public EV station, so you don't need to meet the land use requirements. If at some point you do run into something and want to separate those out, you certainly can, right? So it gives you the most flexibility.
I just was trying to imagine a scenario where it would be different.
Yeah, and
Is there a definition for EV charging station?
yes,
So is it by voltage, by power, by units, like how's that?
no, it is the use. So how does somebody interact with that piece of land? Right, so just like a gas station. So it doesn't matter how many pumps you have, it's still a gas station.
Okay.
Now, mind you too, to be really clear, when we clarify this on the top of the land use table, these are only primary uses of property. So for example, let's say that out here, over here, City Hall parking lot, you want to put up a EV station. That would be accessory to the parking facility, that's accessory to City Hall. Right, that's very different than like a gas station. Right, if you go to the Come and Go, that's a gas station with a CV store, convenience store. So really what we're only talking about when we talk about EV stations are, think of it like, the Come and Go is now, instead of having gas pumps, they're having plugs. Pretty much everything that we're seeing today on the EV side would be considered accessory to a primary use, whether it's a parking facility, parking structure, gas station, some other use that's accessory to.
So if I put one in my garage, it's not at all, it doesn't have anything to do. with
That's
it.
correct.
Tracy.
I'm gonna be a little ridiculous here, just to make a point. But when you take out prohibited uses and some new thing comes along, like a lunar shuttle or something, and it, maybe we want that here, but if somebody looks at our table of uses, they go, oh, it's prohibited, because it's not listed. How are we gonna address that?
We talked about this.
Love that.
Thank you for asking it, because I was asking the same question.
The lunar shuttle specifically?
No, use number 100.
Are you asking on behalf of Elon Musk? I mean, just ask my friend.
Going up tomorrow.
We don't have any crystal. Right, we don't know what's gonna come in the future. Our goal in this is to set you up to be able to address those the best we can. Now, the thing that we've talked about in how this is all set up structurally is to manage and mitigate impacts. And so twofold. One, just simply by the construct of your code, right? It simply does not you don't identify what's prohibited. You identify what's allowed and then limitations to it, right? So by definition or by construct there, if it's not in the code, it's prohibited, right? So it's just across the board, it's just kind of the nature of it. What we've done though, by adding that use category, is allow there to be an interpretation where able to make something that we can't contemplate today fit into a category, because there's the authority is given to the planning director to interpret land uses. And so really that extra column of the use category provides that flexibility. And then, again, the way we're trying to set it up is that if I don't trying to go with your obscure notion, but I can't follow that. But I don't know if that necessarily helps answer the question.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about economic development, and somebody interested in coming to Leadville, which we would love, and looking at the table of use garden, I can't do this here in the city. Is there something we could put in that some language? I'm looking at Christian. That sounds,
Yeah.
if it's new, call us.
Or like the procedure to go through if it's not listed.
And I think there is, there's a, so if it's not listed, it gives, like I said, the planning director the authority to interpret it.
Okay, because it says here, if it's not listed, it's prohibited.
That is correct. Yes, but that doesn't mean, again, the way the current code reads is specifically, if it's not listed, it's not allowed. But because we added that use category, it adds a broader umbrella that it can be interpreted as. Does that kind of help? Now, another thing, I think we talked about this early on, because just full disclosure, the first time I saw this code, it was from the town of Bayfield. And I thought it was fabulous, land use table, done a bunch of research on things, and that's personally, this is what I recommend to all of my clients. But they had, I think we started with this and said, no, let's pull it out. Another line within each use category that said any other use in this use category. And what we ended up doing, I think, is just put conditional use across the board.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just seems silly to do. But that, something along those lines is something that we can look at as well. Specifically in some of the commercial or economic kind of components.
Okay.
That was something, but now mind you too, I'm sure I just get some stares from over there. That is not necessarily something I would advise, just simply by the downside of that probably outweighs the positives, if you will. You also have a very simple text amendment process. So if you did see something and you're like, we just can't figure out how to make it happen here, you just go in, add a use in there, add a definition, and you're good, you're off to the races. Right, so it's also set you up for success in adapting to changes in the code itself.
The point of this has been, I mean, I know I'm belaboring the obvious, to simplify the table of uses, to have much broader categories, not have so much specificity. But with that in mind, I'd like us to at least consider adding a couple lines. And the reason I say that is under recreation and entertainment. And this is going to go to the whole issue of OHVs. And I'm an OHV user, been one my entire life, most of my life. And so I believe that they are in general a good use of recreational opportunities. That having been said, we've also talked about trying to avoid what's happened to some other cities. And so what I'm going to propose, because you have outdoor recreation equipment rental, that's assuming non-motorized. I mean, I don't think that's assuming it. I'm assuming non-motorized.
That's not the definition states that it is motorized.
Okay, then I think we need to do something about that. The reason I say that is if it's going to be motorized, okay, I think it needs to be conditional. The reason I say that is, and the conditions might be that if you're going to rent a motorcycle or an ATV, that you have to have certain safety equipment. And if you're going to rent a motorcycle or an ATV, you're going to have to have them watch a film on trail ethics, just so that we have the ability to have conditions in place rather than just a right by use over which we can exercise no control. So that's what I'm asking as a potential change.
So you're saying split that outdoor recreation equipment rental into more port categories.
Motorized and non-motorized, yes.
I think that might be appropriate too, especially I was looking back at the manufacturing. There was like manufacturing with noise and fumes and manufacturing without noise and fumes. And to me, that motorized versus non-motorized has a similar difference.
So I would like to see that personally. I don't know how, if anybody else wants to agree to that, but I feel like for the future, so we don't become Moab. That we probably need to be in front of that issue, not behind it.
I don't think that particular one thing is gonna like solve all of our issues, but I think.
No, you're right, but we have guided tours right now. They're by far the most responsible use, OHV use you can imagine. But in the spectrum, if you rent without any regulations, now you're at the other end of that spectrum.
Yeah. No,
And
I
so
would
that's
like
my
thoughts on
problem.
this.
Yes, Dan.
So I think it might be I agree, like some sort of guidance will be nice, just so it doesn't become too crazy. I would like to point out, I don't know how many of you guys are involved, but October 25th, I remember Mayor was there for part of the meeting. The county had a work session regarding commercial OHV outfitters. For commercial OHV outfitters on county roads. It is in the work right now, potentially changing the current ordinance for OHV, saying everyone can go on the county road with the OHV to split it up to private use and commercial use. One of the items they're proposing to change for commercial OHV operators are no rental are going to be allowed on all of the county road.
So just guided. I'm trying to make sure I understand.
There's
No.
so no. It is very interesting. It's still in the works, right? So it's not finalized or by any means. But right now, one of the items for the new ordinance for the proposed change for OHVs is they do not want any rental machines on the county roads.
So if you were to rent a machine, you'd have to trailer it? I'm just trying to make sure I understand
Yeah, so
potentially.
I don't know exactly what that means.
I don't even know if trailer would help. I think we're that's a little bit too much. We can't control what they do.
Right.
I'm more concerned with what we can accomplish.
But it comes down to if the county potentially passes ordinance to say no rental is allowed. I mean, like, there won't be rental really in city.
I understand.
So
Right.
it's just, you know, I don't know, if something is something. I think it's something we can do that will probably not hurt, you know.
Maybe we can lead by example too. In terms of,
Right.
of having conditional uses and putting regulations in place around it. What's that?
And does motorized include electric vehicles? Does they have motors?
Well, technically, an electric vehicle is a motor, you know.
Or an e-bike, would an e-bike count?
Right.
Well, I'll pipe in on that. Some, and we'd have to check in Colorado, state statute, but some states have changed the definition to exclude e-bikes from the
Right.
definition of.
The federal
motorized.
government has actually done that.
Well,
So
the,
that e-bikes.
They
would be
changed the
allowed on, like,
classification.
backpacks.
the federal government has not consistently done that across their agencies. Some agencies have done it, so it's,
Yeah.
I'll say right now it's a mishmash, but you can exclude electric bikes from the definition of motor vehicle.
Right, I read that somewhere, that's.
I mean,
yeah,
the city of Moab did that, and Utah, the state of Utah does that.
Right,
But of course, to your point, their electric motorcycles are on the horizon. So we may have to say e-bikes up to 750 watts.
right.
I mean, that's the way it's defined.
We'll probably have hoverboards and whatever.
But thinking back, like, I feel like TJ has trained me to think about like uses, and so like the alcohol example, like is. Are smells, odors, fumes, are things being produced on that land use? In a way that like a brewery is different than a bar. So thinking here is renting. Something with motor vehicles potentially has noise and fume is different than renting a pair of Nordic skis.
I would.
Traffic issue.
It's not a traffic issue, it's just it's like a nuisance issue from that.
Well, here's where I disagree. I'm talking about safety and trail ethics are my concern. And electric motorcycles exist right now and they're powerful and they're very fast. And next thing on the horizon is going to be electric side by sides. We already know electric cars are coming. It's all going to be electric. So we need to define this in a way.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And
Right, so even if the noise and fumes aren't an
We'll
issue,
leave it
there's
up
still a
to TJ.
safety issue.
Yeah, and I guess the way I would look at it right now is that whether it's a combustion engine or an electronic engine or electric engine, it would be motorized. And it would fall under that classification.
Well, except that we talked about e-bikes, they fall on 750 watts of power and under. Is that correct?
Well, e-bikes are put into three classes, and they're more based on speed than they are the horsepower.
Yeah, but they are limited in terms of their power. Anyway, so we're gonna let you figure that out. I definitely will.
But what I would, because I don't think Mayor gets to the heart of your question of basically standards tied to a use. And I think we've had these conversations over the last 5 years that say it is not my recommendation to develop a land use table or definitions on specific uses that granular. What we could do is you have it in, I don't know the exact section, but you have a supplemental regulation section in your code. In there, you have occupation, you have group home, accessory dwelling units or accessory uses, right? And I like to, when I do new codes, I put a whole use standards section or chapter. That then you go into each of these. Kennels is the perfect example. Where like kennels are allowed in these zone districts, but in different zone districts, I want to make sure these performance measures are being met. And so you put a whole slew of new standards tied to that specific use. So what would happen is someone would come in, now mind you too, every single use that is not a single family or duplex, and I don't remember the threshold, I think it's 3 dwelling units or below, have to go through the site plan process. So now you have a tool to evaluate every use. Okay, so don't forget about that. This is not a component in a vacuum. This works with everything else in the code. So something that's, new, let's just OHV, your typical razor rental facility comes in, and now they have to go for site plan. You start looking at access, you look at parking, you look at the operations, you look at, okay, how are you gonna operate? How many people are coming a day? What's that traffic look like? Now you have the tool to evaluate those health safety issues. But what you're getting to, I think, is we want to specify a little bit more on the operations of that use for the public health, safety, and welfare. We can establish standards in that use standard. This is okay, when you come in for this outdoor recreation equipment rental, you also have to meet these performance standards. Does that make some sense?
It makes perfect sense. I mean, it's what I'm hoping for, just in a different way.
Correct. And that way it really segregates these two elements that are fundamentally different. You don't really want these two to come together, because if you try to just parse all of that out on the table.
It got a lot more complicated than I thought. Okay, well, thank you. I don't want to belabor it, but that to me, the responsible recreation is important, and how we get at that, I'm not sure. Any other questions, TJ? Yes, Tracy.
Bed and breakfast and a hotel. You have the bed and breakfast as a conditional use in the retail core and commercial, which is the opposite of a hotel. I realize bed and breakfasts are kind of going away, but I'm wondering what the thinking is there, why that wouldn't be allowable like a motel and conditional and TR and TC.
You remember, I think you behind that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if we changed it or. So generally though, a bed and breakfast is more of a residential look and feel. So you don't really want it in your commercial.
Have you looked across the street at that great big Victorian?
But now, and I don't know that specifically, but we limited the bed and breakfast to be 5 units. 5 rooms for rent. So if it's 6 units, you cannot be a bed and breakfast. You automatically jump up to a motel. Because that's, it used to be 10. Actually, I should have mentioned this, I think, Chink and I were talking about that, and we reduced it to 5.
But Tracy, it is conditional in the retail core.
So it could be allowed.
But
Yeah, but the hotels are used by right, but bed and breakfasts are conditional. I guess I just don't understand.
And I think the
yeah, you're right.
well, the point there is that you want to incentivize more intense development, more dense development in your cores and your commercial areas,
Okay,
and limit that if you get back to your.
that's what I figured you were.
So it really is, like, frankly, I don't think you want a bed and breakfast with only 5 units in your commercial core. You're like, hey, no, jack that up to 8, 10, 15, right? Let's get some of these for lease rooms increased. But I think that's legit. And how those work together. Yeah, that is a really good point, though, that there's no physical difference, if you will, between a bed and breakfast and a hotel motel, except the number of rooms for lease.
that part looks so much cleaner. I remember how it used to be. And we have all these weird properties in town and just like, well, what about this one? This looks just so much cleaner.
One just last kind of, so because of that too, I don't know the exact example you're talking about, but inevitably, just know that if and when this gets approved, we are going to be creating non-conforming uses throughout the city.
Yeah.
Okay, so just know, and that's okay. What we're doing is trying to move this in the direction that the city wants to move. And so as those start redeveloping, you'll start pushing them towards what the ultimate goal is. So think about that too. And then, of course, your non-conforming standards and code sections are going to come into play. When do those, right? So it's really hard to play through all of these scenarios when we're only looking at one or two components of the code. But just know this is going to probably create more headaches the first year than solve problems. I would say, so just let it go for a year, see what happens, and then come in and do an update. Because we're going to get things wrong, I guarantee it. Right? And you're just like, oh wow, that doesn't make any sense at all. In this zone district, so whatever that is, right? And that's okay.
All right. Any other questions for TJ?
A hypothetical. When we define a house that is renting out more than 3 bedrooms and is right now considered residential, a hotel, so that they pay commercial property taxes?
Two very different questions there. One, a land use component, one, the taxation. I believe that per Colorado state law, you cannot tax it commercial if it's a residence.
Even when they're renting rooms like a hotel?
I don't know what that threshold is, but that was part of the statewide dialogue on short-term rentals, that the short-term rentals are not commercial uses from a tax standpoint. That's a really good question. I guess what I would say is it really comes down to interpretation and understanding the operation, because I can see that being operated as a bed and breakfast, not a single family home. If it's being rented out for, if three, say, just again, using kind of a more specific or better example, say there's 5 bedrooms that are being rented out. It's not a hotel 4. It's not a hotel motel, because it's under the 5. It's not really a single family because you're renting it out on a short-term kind of basis. Now, what is it? By definition, it could be a bed and breakfast because that defines renting up to 5 rooms for shorter than 30-day period. Now you get into, is it a short-term rental component too? Now you get into the interpretation and looking at the operations. Is it all short-term? Is it all long-term, right? You want people to rent out 5 rooms for long-term in their house, right? So that's where your code enforcement process comes in. You know, it kind of gives you the tool to evaluate on those scenarios.
Okay.
Does that help?
My 2 cents on this is I want a municipality with much more money and lawyers to fight this battle so that, you know, they can kind of,
Well,
someone needs to be the first person to fight that battle and put
and even
something,
to Plainfield.
Right.
Hotel then, all these large.
yeah.
hotels.
I almost wish there was like a criteria approach of like, there's 5 or 6 criteria, and if you meet a certain number of the criteria, you're kind of in the commercial, you end up in the commercial side.
Yeah.
And if you don't meet all those criteria, you end up in the residential side, but the assessors need to be
And
involved in this
bed and
conversation.
breakfasts are considered commercial.
Correct. Correct. I think in this scenario, if after some evaluation and analysis and talking about the operations, you could easily interpret it as a bed and breakfast. And say you're no longer a residence.
Right,
You are now a commercial venture. Now, I don't think that should be-
Yeah, that's a trick. There's
Right,
a-
the cleanest way is
I'll
the
take
excess,
that.
refer to the short-term rental chapter, like. It was just too messy to try to solve that.
Well, I mean, I would say we've done a pretty good job of trying to pull short-term rentals under control. It's not absolute. Someone's always gonna game the system, but you know, some of these secondary considerations are, they really go down a rabbit hole. And it's not easy. I would say, I talked to, a couple times, I talked to Julie McCluskey about the whole idea of commercially designating short-term rentals. And what she and I kind of discussed was, it would have to be maybe more than 2 rooms. If it's more than 2, maybe that's when you do it, or I don't know, you know, the legislature just won't.
I know when it's come before.
They won't.
Legislature before,
It's been shut down a couple times.
extremely controversial.
Right, now the proposed work around that is the legislation might vote to let each county decide on its own how it wants to handle that. So, okay. Yeah, anyway, that's where it is right now. It's in limbo, so. Okay. TJ, thank you. And, you know, this is a fabulous product in only 5 years. I love it.
So I know we're all kind of itching to get out, but next steps. You all tell me, you know, I kind of proposed, I know this thing intimately, so I know you all don't. But do we want to give, I guess maybe what I would say is, let's give a period of time for you all to review it, digest it, provide comments. And then maybe Gabby, myself, and Chapin can look at those, see if we want to do another work session with planning and zoning, or if we want to just move into the hearing process.
Okay,
What do you think, Gabby? What's
that's
your
what I
preference?
think, I mean. I do want to keep moving, but I do understand that if we need a little more time to digest some of these details, and we can collect any other.
I mean, we're already, where we are in the year, we've already lost, we're not going to planning and zoning until January.
Exactly,
The earliest, right? So, you know,
Yeah.
going to P and Z, the second meeting in
Right.
January.
I guess what I don't want to happen is us to go through the hearing process, and then all of a sudden there's like. This line, I didn't see this, and I'm really against changing this thing from R to C, and I didn't see it the first time around, and then all of a sudden we like have an unforeseen issue.
I've got an idea. I think maybe the next step should be P and Z meets, decides on a final draft. And they submit that to city council, and they give us an opportunity to comment on that. 30 days, I don't know, you know,
Okay.
whatever you think is appropriate. And then whatever those comments are, if you can incorporate those, then you go to a hearing process.
Okay, that's it, I like that. Do you guys like that? Yeah,
That might be cleaner.
sure.
Okay,
So I guess my own thought is from you all, are there any comments now? I guess, to Gabby's point, I don't want to necessarily go back to planning and zoning without hearing the feedback from you all.
anybody else have any ideas?
What we've already discussed.
Right. Okay. Just
So-
me.
Sleep on it, let's say 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I'll get back with Chapin and lay out next steps moving forward. So please, if something comes up in the next 2 weeks, go through Chapin. I think you all have my contact information as well. Feel free to reach out, send some things, and we'll get this thing tied up.
Thank you very much. Any last comments from the city council or P and Z? Everybody's too tired. This is great. Thanks, TJ.
Thank you.
5 years well spent.
Do I need to adjourn the planning and zoning?
Probably you should do
Meeting?
that at this time, yes.
That was my adjournment closing. Adjourn the planning and zoning meeting at 9:28.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for your
Thank you.
patience.
gonna go home and have a hot cup of tea.
Sounds good.
That's what I should.
Okay, real quick, we have the meetings planner.
It's great.
I don't know, the meeting planner stuff, shop small Saturday's coming up, next week. 26th. And, there's also an open house at Creighton that same day. School board meetings, may or may not go to that. The CML effective governance, class is on December 1st. If anybody wants to sign up for that, let me know and I'll sign you up because there's a cost associated with it. I can put it on the card, city card.
See on here, November 29th, gonna be that, lease versus,
Oh, yeah. And where's that being held?
good question.
I
I'll
just
get
have
back
this,
to you
I
on
think
that.
it's Zoom.
It's with Willa, so it might be through Zoom. There will at least be a Zoom option. But we can get that emailed out. I'd have to check. I don't remember if there was.
I didn't write the location down anywhere. I have it down on my calendar, but not a location. And maybe it was only a Zoom option. I don't remember. No, got nothing. Anybody else?
Just let them know there will be no tourism panel meeting in December.
Okay, thank you. Next tourism panel meeting will be January. Actually, it's January 17th.
They're actually going to go through a bi-monthly schedule.
Oh, yeah, let's see. Just asking.
You know, you're right. We just haven't made any plans. It's been so
It's all
hectic.
right.
You're right.
Always up for a party.
Seriously.
Let's see what we can put together. Your house is
Like,
what
anybody
date?
is welcome at my house. Ooh, we could have like one of those like progressive parties. This thing from one to one. Yeah.
That might be kind of fun.
Huh? Yeah, like you go like, oh, we're going to Shannon's for hot Fridays and then, you know, Tim's for gingerbread and then the mayor's for, you know, like, I don't know.
It's funny. Okay, mayor's report. It's too late for that. City council reports.
Like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you want to make any report about the EDC?
The president of the EDC board, and all three EDC employees have resigned.
Well, good.
Unexpectedly?
Well, for me, it was, I think that they felt like the interference from the county had just become too much. And so they just said, no,
So we have,
we're done.
the mayor and I have been talking about this and, we think economic development is important. And so we need to figure out what this means, as far as our budget. And as far as our budget requests, so we have some ideas, and again, we think economic development is really important, so we need to see that disappear.
I think it's important, but maybe we should consider not following the increase requested.
Well, I think there's some other options too, we just need to, I mean, I don't know if the county doesn't fully fund the request, if their EDC can function anyway, so is there some other option? I don't know.
Well, here's what's more important to me is remember also the Main Street
Right.
is part of that. You know, I'm not as concerned
Should we
about
take that
economic
back?
development. Yes,
Yeah.
the answer is that's what I would like to do. I'd like for us to strongly consider that. We've been doing it for 8 years in the city of Leadville. In my opinion, it's made a huge difference in our downtown.
And that's
And
what
what-
we did when the EDC was having problems. We took Main Street and then gave it back to them.
Well, we had Main Street for years. Yeah, the answer is yes. Mike Cordonia didn't want to deal with Main Street, so we brought it back into the city, and then just 6-8 months ago, because we wanted to give Nancy full-time employment because we didn't have
Mhm.
a designated person, we thought that was a good fit. And it was. I mean, what Main Street has done this summer is it's really remarkable. So I'll get into that
Okay.
later. Thank
So
you.
lots of things to keep thinking about for our budget.
Fun.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah.
I guess we could do that. At 9:33, the city council meeting is adjourned.
So bad.